GingerGM.
Welcome to my coverage of the last day of the semi-finals from the Goldmoney chess tournament, and it was a really exciting day. We're into the finals today and tomorrow over the weekend, and it's in two legs, and the first leg was won by Magnus Carlsen the day before and by Ding. So both Magnus Carlsen, who should be big favourite against Aronian going into the second day, he only needs to draw 2-2 in the 4-game match to go through or win, and the same goes for Ding. Ding only needed to draw 2-2 in this match to go through. And we're going to dive into the games. We're going to have a look at Magnus's game first, and then the great Ding versus Artimiev. Now, this is just letting you know who they're playing, and just to remind you, Magnus Carlsen won up from the day before, and the same goes for Ding. So I want to show you some interesting moments, and like day one, Magnus lost his first game. I don't know what it is. He has quite a bad record at the start of tournaments. There's other players who are famous for this. I think Mikhail Tau was another one. He famously didn't do very well in his first rounds. He had to get warmed up. And in this game, Magnus had the white pieces. And it looks like he's got an absolutely fine and, I would say, better position in this structure here. Why is white better? Because, yeah, black's got the two bishops, but this is one case where I definitely take the knights. The knights are secure in the center. This knight can't be kicked away. This knight can't be kicked away by any pawns, and they just dominate black's position. Also, white has the more active rooks, and things are looking rosy. Now, rook d7 was played, Aronian on the defensive. Rook b6, just trying to gang up on that pawn. And now Aronian lashed out with a move that Magnus must have been expecting, because you're always on the lookout for your opponent's only way to get counterplay. When you're controlling the position, you want to stop the counterplay. Maybe Magnus thought there was no way to stop this f5 move. And here, can you improve on Magnus's play? Now, I'll tell you at various points to maybe pause the video as we're going through to see if you can improve on the world champion or some of the other players. And this is one case where you have an opportunity. In the game, white played queen g3, and things start to go horribly wrong here. There was a much better move. Always look for the tactical possibilities, especially when your pieces are so well placed. And knight takes e5. It's just clearly very good for Magnus. If the knight is taken, we simply take this one. Okay, you can take here. So what? I just recapture. I'm a safe pawn up with a great knight still against your bad bishop. The only other line that Magnus needed to calculate was pawn takes e4. Maybe this is what he was scared of when his knights are on pre. Maybe he missed now the counter blow. Queen takes f8 check. I mean, at this level, you'd fully expect Magnus on a normal day to find this move. And the point being, after king takes, we just chop. We just chop the pieces. Knight takes d7 check, chop. And now we go rook takes b8 check, chop. And after this one, we just take on e4, and this is a winning position for white. You can't even take here because I get there first. Let's show that variation, and your king is in more trouble. That's going to be checkmate. And in this position, the knight is good. Two rooks are better than the queen, and white has extra pawns. Quite a simple win. Now, if we go back to the game, he played queen g3, and after exchange on g3, well, he's damaged his pawn structure now. And also, after pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, black eliminates that knight. And this is still okay for Magnus, but he's missed the chance to capitalise on his good position. If this pawn was on f2, I'd say Magnus has a fantastic position, because for a start, he can move it to e4, move it to f3, stabilise e4, and then I would be putting my knight on that square where it just remains in the middle of the board. Slightly better than on c4, because it has ways to come in. But in this position, after Aronian did some very clever manoeuvring, he suddenly gains this counterplay, and this is another reason I want that pawn back on f2 to stop this passed pawn coming down the board. Rook e3, you have to control it. Rook f5, and now again on a better day, Magnus would have played better here. Something you could tell something was up today. Everyone has a bad day. I know. I just seem to have too many. I have many more bad chess days than these guys. 99% of the time, especially when I'm bound to blitzing or something. It happens. You just got to cope with the bad days and just remind yourself there'd be good days ahead. Everyone has it, no matter what you're doing in life. And really, as we discussed yesterday, what was Aronian's main mistake yesterday? It was in the rook endings. He was playing some bad ideas and he wasn't activating his rooks as much as he should do. And here, the defensive knight d2 just starts to go wrong. Had Magnus played rook a3 and just try to activate his rooks, this knight can pretty much deal with that pawn. This would have been, again, a totally different game. After knight d2, we have now an exchange on e4. But after a couple of moves, it becomes clear that this position, black is very much better because of these two pawns. White's extra pawn is just useless on the king side. And Aronian showed good technique to go and win this game. So the first game, we see Aronian taking a very important victory with the black pieces again. But let's not ever rule out Magnus Carlsen. He's the bounce backer. So we now move into another key game, and Magnus in the next game was a draw, and then in the third game he had white again. And I want to go through this game in a bit more detail today because I found it very exciting, especially some parts of it. And had Magnus won this third game, remember it's 4 games that they play each day. Magnus, if he wins this game, only needs to draw the next one. He's won because he won the day before. He only needs to get 2-all. The score at the moment is 1.5 in Alev's favour. Now he comes out with e4, and they have a Raul Lopez, bishop b5, and Aronian, one of the world's leading experts in the black side of Raul Lopez. If you want to learn about how to play the Raul Lopez with black, you can look at Aronian's games for the last 10-20 years. He knows his stuff. Knight f6, standard line, castles, and now a little surprise from Aronian. He's more been a traditionalist here, and b5 is traditional Raul Lopez, followed by bishop e7. The bishop is solid here, and this is one of the most popular positions in chess. Bishop c5 is a little bit more funky. It's called the Archangel variation. It's a bit more risky. The bishop takes up a more active square than e7, but it also comes with risk. For example, when white plays his normal plan c3 and d4, he's going to win a tempo because it attacks the bishop. Tempos are very important in chess. Another slight issue that black sometimes encounters is when the bishop comes to g5, it will be in a nasty pin because there's no bishop on e7 blocking the pin. But this is certainly a very interesting variation, and it's something I've been very tempted to learn as black, because black gets some very active possibilities. Top players are playing this. It's confirmed to be okay, and you can play for a win with black. But you keep it in as quite a solid structure. As Raul Lopez, this kind of structure is always going to be reasonably solid. So now c3, the main move, b5, bishop b3, d6, and now a4. And this is a clever way to try and create some counterplay over here. And Aronian played a novelty. I'm not 100% convinced by his next move. It doesn't look great to me. The main move here is just rook b8. And the point being, you just stop anything over there, go back to plan 1. And now the main line, this happened in MVL and versus Aronian in 2021 in Paris, is d4, bishop b6. The bishop gets shunted away, but black's figuring this bishop's going to be very handy attacking the centre on that diagonal for long term. Bishop g4 is one idea to increase the pressure on the centre by attacking that knight. And after h3, stopping that idea, you get the bishop this way, and you get a very complex game here. But this, at the moment, theoretically seems fine for black. Bishop b7, I'm not so sure about. Okay, d4 happens, and we're going to see the difference in a minute. And the difference is, well, bishop g5 is a move that could have been played. And now castles, again, this has been played before. Aronian was playing this very quickly. h6 is very tempting, because after bishop h4, I really like g5 here, because you're going to try to play g4 and undermine this position. So after h6, I think white has to take here, which he doesn't normally want to do. Maybe Magnus's idea was to play the rather frustrating move bishop d5, which seems to hold up the pieces over there. And this is where, combined with pawn takes b5, you can see actually the queen side being a bit of a problem for black. So castle's been played, and we have a capture on b5. The rooks come off, and now d5. I'm going through this quite quickly because this has been seen before, and I think this position is a much more suspect for black than the other line. The knight seems to be a bit offside, but the main problem is the b5 pawn. White just simply has some good ways to attack that pawn and win it. So Aronian playing this very quickly, and he banged out the novelty. I think it was a novelty c6 here, but I think he got his variation mixed up. Magnus plays knight a3, pawn takes d5, and now another question to you. You can pause here. Tactics are important, but positional chess is just as important as tactics. And well, I'll ask you to pause in a second. What would you play here, and why? Simple, relatively simple answer, but an important answer. Pause. Well, in these positions, generally, the principle is you always want to get a piece to this square as white. Why? Because as soon as you take with a pawn, a mistake, you lose a lot of your advantages. You lose the pressure against this backwards pawn, you block it up, and you can't use this square anymore. It becomes actually even a bit of a square that black can attack. So you must, in these structures, aim to remain a piece on the square. You keep the pressure against d6, and you have a beautiful square there. For example, now, had bishop takes d5 happened, white is actually winning here positionally after the clever. Again, you don't want to take with a pawn. Bishop takes f6, and now queen takes d5, and I would just consider this positionally winning. These pawns are probably going to drop in the center of the board. So a little positional task there. Okay, so let's move on. So we'll move through the games. I'm going to get to the next critical moment. Magnus played this very well. He's got a nice opening. He's a pawn up. This looked like he was cruising. He does some damage to the black king. He makes sure he swaps off that bishop to keep his advantages. Look at that pawn. Everything was going swimmingly. And now he moves his knight because he's thinking, I'm going to finish this guy off. Aronian, to his credit, tries to get activity, tries to do what he can in the center. And around here, Magnus plays okay. But he misses his first win, albeit a very hard win to see. He plays f6. This can't be a terrible move at all. The computer indicates that queen g4, which is an obvious looking attacking move, and then f6 was stronger. This forces black's next move. You can't go rook g8 because I can take the knight and queen. You have to go knight g6. And now, because of these pieces being on the wrong side of the board, black can't defend his king. And there's the brilliant knight f3. And the point is, we're just going to try and come for h7. Black has to take this knight. The knight now comes into g5. And just one more move that you've got to be a little bit careful of here. King g8, for example, there's not much else black can do. And in this position, you've just got to avoid queen h5. Again, this is a pause moment. What could black do if you blundered with this move as white here? Looks like it's mate. But boom! Not quite. In actual fact, after this shocking defense, black would be able to defend and win the game. So you've got to be careful, even in very good positions, but playing knight h7 would lead to mate. And this just, the king is just too exposed. If we take here now, I can come in and you won't be able to stop me, checkmate you on g7, and this is game over. Okay, so we're now going to zoom through the moves, and I'm going to go very quickly to Magnus was obviously still doing well the way he played it, and he played a very nice game, to be fair. A little bit complicated here, but he's always going to get his piece back because, nice tactic there, because of that strong pawn. And we get into this ending. And Magnus is one of the strongest, well, probably the strongest endgame player of all time. And he's got the outside pass pawn. Now, the most important thing to remember in a queen and pawn ending is two things, I feel. Well, it's more than two, but your king's safety. After king h2, the white king is very safe It can't be checked. It's entirely safe there. The next important thing, and probably the most important thing, is who's got the passed pawn. It doesn't matter even if your pawn's down. If you've got a passed pawn that's further up the board, that's enough to win the game. Material, being a pawn down, doesn't matter so much if you've got the pawn that's passed and going up the board. This is just key. And after some more moves, we come to an important position here. Obviously, black can't exchange queens. And how do we win this position? And the only way really white can win this position, he's not going to be able to advance that pawn just by using his queen, because black can keep a little bit of pressure there, a little bit of pressure behind. The only way, and the way to win this ending generally, is yes, your king is safe, but you've got to take the risk of moving your king towards the queen side to support that pawn. This gives black a lot of checks, but you're banking on being able to block those checks with your queen and then slowly, gradually move this up. So I actually really like the move king g2 here. And I'm just going to gradually probably come this way and try to get my king over to help this. Yes, you're never going to get checkmated. And this is what I'd pick. I also like g4 played, but we get another critical moment later on. Aronian, to his credit, defends excellently. And the next critical moment comes around move 56 in the ending. And it comes after this position. Now, queen e3 is a very sensible move, and I think I would definitely play this move, but well, I say it's very sensible. He actually just drops a pawn here, so it's not that sensible. And here, Aronian, it goes on for another like too many moves, but it ends in a draw. And Aronian's done very well. And the slight problem that white's had is that this pawn has been a bit of a nuisance for him, but there is a winning idea here, and it goes to that same principle as getting your king to help the pawn. And you can even go king f4, and this would win. And after queen f3 check, the king comes. And like I mentioned before, it doesn't matter how many pawns you're losing if you've got the passed pawn, because generally the pawn and the queen can't be stopped. And after b5, white is winning. Even if black goes a pawn up here with queen here, we can get our king to the right area of the board. You can't swap queens, the pawn is too quick. And this is the kind of position we're aiming for, when we can block checks with our queen and our king can hide behind the pawn, and the pawn is just coming through. This is the winning idea. So just remember those principles in queen and pawn endings. So Magnus went on and he only drew this game. And something, he just wasn't quite on the top form. And at this moment in time, this now went to the playoffs. And it ended up Aronian winning the first game, because Aronian won. Therefore, it was a draw the next game, I think. So Aronian had leveled the score over the 2 days, and they have now 2 5-minute games. If it's still drawn after that, then they go into a sudden death. So Aronian back on his feet. Aronian won the first game, and in the second game, Magnus needed to win with white, and let's see if he was able to do that. So I mean, I don't understand. I'd love to get into Magnus's mind. I don't understand why, when you need to win against someone who's really good with e5, you play e4. I've always thought that d4 or c4 are better winning chances at top level. I know there's lots of gambits with e4, but none of the top players play the gambit lines. And they now go into, okay, the Gioco Piano, the Italian game, and now c3. Now, in my Grandmaster Gambits course for Chessable, I recommend a very interesting line where you castle and now sacrifice with d4. And this is something I suggest you investigate. I've got a YouTube video. You can look at this for free, or you can buy the Grandmaster Gambits Chessable course. The point is, bishop takes as the main move. You get bishop g5 in, followed by f4, pressure. Now, they maneuver about. They standardly bring out their pieces in a normal manner. This has all been seen before, and you know, black keeps his bishop safe, and I think we get the first kind of critical moment after g5. Now, I'm sure this is all theory. Bishop g3, g5 as a rule, and this was first shown by Capablanca, who won a very nice game positionally. g5 is a move you do want to play as black when the bishop's on h4, as long as you don't allow knight takes g5. Why do you want to play this move? Capablanca showed that after the bishop goes to g3, the bishop becomes very bad, and as Aronian played, this knight coming here gives black very nice play on the king side. The knight will not take the bishop generally, but the knight sometimes it does, especially as you can't take with the f-pawn. The f-pawn would be quite nice, but it can often come into f4, and this is just considered an equalising idea. But I do wonder what theory says about knight g5, and it seems a little bit strange in a must-win situation. You could just tell Magnus wasn't quite there today, that he didn't go for this line. You get 2 pawns, you get ideas of the pin, you get the queen coming over, you get king f1, f4. Maybe this has just been analysed to a draw. I'm not an expert in this position and by any means, but this seemed like a more aggressive way to play. Now the way the game went, Aronian, okay, decided to take here. Now, I would like to take with the f-pawn here because g5 does weaken some black squares, these two. And I'd like to get my rook in, but I can't do that because of the bishop. So that's why I think black took there. And after knight c6, Magnus tried knight h2, but it just didn't work. And again, in chess, especially in these closed positions, it's important to see your opponent's weak squares. And f5 is always the square you aim for. And getting a knight to that square, I'm sure on a better day, Magnus would have thought, okay, well, to get there, I need to get a knight there. And then you just trace the route. Can that knight get there? Not realistically, because in both of those routes, there's pawns in the way. So I would be like, right, my knight on f3 can't get to that square. Can I find any way my knight can get there? Well, what about e3? E3 I come in here. If my opponent's bishop takes there, I'll quite happily take there because I open up the rook. I get rid of this annoying bishop, which is a little ninja. So why don't I go knight c4 and bring the knight to e3, and then I have ideas. Maybe not straight away, but I'm controlling this important square. And okay, black can try to do a normal move to guard it, but here I don't think black should take here. And now I've got my knight to a nice square. I can even play in the centre with d4, and I think this is just a simple way to keep the game going. After knight h2, Magnus's idea is to stop g5, f5, but black is just very solid here. Knight e7, a typical maneuver where you can go c6, the knight comes to the king side. Magnus tries to blast it open with f4, but it doesn't quite work here. The knight now simply comes back, and well, in this position, Magnus is really punting, and it's just not enough. It's not enough, and he goes on to lose. He gets knocked out. Aronian through to the final. Amazing. Magnus had a bad day, but well done, Aronian, for getting through to the final. It's great to see him in the final. Okay, let's now have a look at the other match, Artimiev versus Ding. And in the first leg, Ding was very successful, played very nice against Artimiev, crushed him. Very easily won the first day. So Artimiev needed to win the rapid section and the blitz section to go through. Now, the first game, Artimiev struck. He had the 2 bishops. We're picking it up on move 28. And after black tried to break free, he now finds rook takes d5. And we have a little tactical exchange here. Knight takes d5. And a lot of pieces get chopped. And what we get to here is 2 bishops versus 2 knights, but white's pawns are quite nice. And, okay, Artimiev showed, we're going to jump later on into an ending. He showed very good endgame technique. This ending not easy to win, but it is a win. Artimiev struck first. Now let's move to the next game. And straight away, Ding came back and struck next. I think this might have been actually after a draw. So I think it was 1.5 to Artemiev. Ding, with this win, goes to 1.5 all. And this was a very, very nice game. F3 is a crafty way to play against the Grunfeld. The idea of this, if you go knight c3, black plays d5, and after e4, black can now have this tempo gaining move, knight takes c3, because you have to catch it back. The point of playing f3, if black plays d5 now, well, we go do the same thing, but after e4, the knight has to run away, lose the tempo, and white's got a promising position. So they played into quite a theoretical line, and the first novelty came on move 17. This idea, this is a very nice square, f2 for the knight in these positions. If you ever get it to f2, you should do. And now that black can't take it, white takes the opportunity to get it there. Why is it good there? It controls the centre, stops anything coming to g4. It's a nice square, better than f3 actually. And they continue. Let's get the first novelty. Ding plays very aggressively. g4, lovely move. I love it when... This is the way Ding used to play. He used to just play like an absolute lunatic. Hence why I love Ding. h4, come on. Bring it on, son. And funnily enough, this had all been seen before. And the first novelty comes now. This had been seen in Burks versus Zong, Dallas 2015. And now Ding plays on the other side of the board, trying to dislodge this knight. All credit now goes to Artimiev. Artimiev plays perfectly. When someone's playing absolutely mental against you on the king side, keep your cool and try to remember counter-attacking is a very important part of chess, and try to just get through in the middle of the board to their king. White's king is in just as much danger as black's here. You're not going to easily checkmate black with a bishop on g7. This is a key defensive piece. It defends a lot of squares, as we're going to see. In order to checkmate in these positions, somehow white would love to get rid of that bishop. For example, getting a bishop to d4, then checkmate possibilities look good. But I like this. A brilliant move, knight d5. The point being, if we take that, black can now... Okay, he gets rid of the bishop, but he does it for a very good cause. He strikes first in the centre. So white opens up the h-file, and now he gets ready to try and bring the rook over. He's trying everything. Knight b4, a nice square for the knight. Tactical opportunities. The king goes away, rook b8, and now king g2. Not actually correct, looks normal. He should have just got on with it now with f5. The point being, if we can get f6, this is one way we can play against the bishop. And this was much better. After king g2, the bishop comes to c8, and all of a sudden f5 is not possible. The rook comes to h4, c5, and this now runs into a bad move from Ding. He should play bishop g4, and I think he should just try to get the queen over and try to get the knight in. This would be one way to get rid of the bishop, right? Try to get this knight somewhere where you can try to, get your opponent to swap it off. Bishop c4, and now Artemiev plays brilliantly. d5, cracking the centre of the board open. We had an exchange on d5, and pawns don't really matter in these positions, but with bishop b7, it's suddenly white's king is looking very scary. f5 tried, okay. Queen h5, Ding is getting a bit desperate here. The king has the f8 square, and look how good the bishop is at defending. You can't really checkmate with that bishop. Well, that's what Artimiev thought. And look at this, rook f3. He's trying everything. This can't and shouldn't be taken because the light square bishop is strong. Material not so important. But this is a brilliant move. Black finds a way to attack. It's all about attacking, counter-attacking. g6, white trying everything. Knight e1. King h3. Bishop takes c4. Black playing very well. He's controlling everything. Rook g3. White's getting desperate. Of course, it looks scary, this position. But you just got to keep your cool. Look at what your opponent's threat is. And here, black played a horrendous mistake. He was like +9. This would have got him through to the final. He played double dubious mark, queen f6. Why is this a bad mistake? Because he didn't look at his opponent's last move. And after pawn takes f7, it suddenly dawns on Artimiev that he can't take this with anything because queen h8 is checkmate. Unbelievable. He has to go king f8, and there's now, well, white just takes all these pieces, and all of a sudden white is just a rook and a piece up, and he's winning. Had black realised that white's idea is to take here and kept up the energetic counter-attacking play, I'm sure he would have seen bishop f1 check. And the point of this is now this rook is not defended very well, so we can take on g6. You can't go queen takes because this one. The check on h7, we just go king f8, very safe here because this bishop defends everything. If you try rook takes, again trying to get this in, we have the brilliant defense, queen takes h4, knight to f3, winning everything. So that was a real missed opportunity by Artimiev. So Ding has now leveled the match. And it was 1.5 all, and this was the 4th game of the Rapid, and Ding only needed to draw this with black to get in the final. We pick it up in the ending, and we pick it up after a position where Artimiev, desperately trying to win, takes on e6. Artimiev is a pawn up, but there's so little material. This position really should be a draw. Now, David Howe, in his excellent commentary with Yifan on the main channel, pointed out here the easiest draw. Imagine you're black here. How would you try to draw this position? Pause if you need to. Well, the easiest way to draw, and this is something I didn't spot, I'll be honest, is to take with a rook on e6. And actually now, the point being, you just take on c2. And this is dead. Why is it dead? Because this pawn is just going to queen. White's going to have to give the rook up for it. And it's actually very simple. For example, if you get your rook behind the pawn, I'm just going to go king e3. For example, here, king e3. If you ever check me, I just come away. And you have to go back again. I can even try to win that if I want to, but I don't need to. So this bishop takes c2, very easy. If you go king d6, well, you know, doesn't make any difference. I push and it's fine. So this was the easiest tactical way. But what Ding played was also okay, going into a rook ending. Most rook endings are drawn, but he now does the unthinkable. Never improve your opponent's king in the ending. And White's king is a little bit dodgy here. And I mean, it's not in a great square. And with the next check, you're helping that king either come towards your pawns or come towards the h-pawn. And this check just seems to be a horrible blunder. A very simple way to draw this would have gone rook g2 when you're forcing rook c6. And there might be, you know, White's idea is if he can get his king over here and take these pawns. But we can use the shoulder technique, a very clever move now, king to e5. And this stops the king coming in. Our idea is it's a very easy draw this. It's just rook h2, take that pawn. And if check and then king d6, then there's a number of ways to draw here in the position, but I think just take the h-pawn. There's not enough material. Now in the game, after rook g7 check, we have the same position. I guess Ding was worried about rook c6, but the problem is king d5, and after this one, Artemiev shows brilliant technique here. Rook e4 check, rook takes d4, and the black king will not be able to stop this pawn. Let's just show the ending. It was very nice ending. This is, we get to the Lucenia position. Now, what is the winning move here for White? Even here, you might think it could be drawn, but the black king is just a little bit far away. If the black king is anywhere else, I expect it is a draw, any of these squares. What is the winning move here? Now, normally, when you're playing these rook and pawn endings, you want to cut your opponent's king off on the file, right? You want to put a rook somewhere like there to stop the king coming across. You can't do that now, and as Doreski pointed out in one of his brilliant endgame books, you can also cut your opponent's king off on the rank. And it's just important to keep that king getting near your pawn, and you can slowly push the pawn. Very good technique. And the pawn now slowly comes up. The king comes to help. Black's king, okay, does get across. Another nice move. We're keeping that king cut off on the rank. We're going to now use our pawn. And this is a very famous Luciana position. The black king is too bad. We get our pawn, the way to win this, we get our pawn as far up the board as we can, and then we build the bridge. So let's show it. Now, we've changed to cut the opponent's king off on this file. This is the best file if you can do it. And we can see we're getting the pawn as far up as we can. Well, this is one way to win. You can also win by going, for example, here, and then you can do it this way. And in some position like this, you build the bridge. But nice tactical idea here is rook d2 and then king c7, and just getting ready. And the point after this one, rook takes c2, and this took it to a playoff. Unbelievable that Ding did not draw that ending. Nerves. I thought Ding was going to easily get through to the final. And let's have a look. Well, we get to the playoff, and I think Ding had just cracked. Artimiev plays an interesting opening. Artemiev's openings are not that great. Let me just see. You can't see the board, can you? Let's try to do. Okay, well, bear with me 1 minute. Chessbase does this occasionally. Goodbye, Chessbase. Bear with me. I'm just going to get the board up to show you the critical game, and I'm just going to have to rearrange this. We're doing it on the fly, boys. We're doing it on the fly. And this it just goes to the playoff game. And the final playoff game, I think Ding had just lost the plot. And after realising he'd thrown away what should have been a very easy draw, I think, you do get depressed. I don't know many people who've got the strength after a game like that to come back. And Artimiev, he doesn't know much theory. Well, he's such a great player. And look what he does. He just goes for a double fianchetto. And now he goes into a normal position. He plays b4. And this is a perfectly okay way to play. And here I think Black's theoretical move is rook e8. You just kind of wait here and you support the e5 push. But I think I would be playing like knight c6 here. Just trying to confirm the center. If you take on c5, well, my knight is perfect for e5. And if you push the pawn on, I might even come back because now you don't have the pressure against my center. Queen c7 looks all wrong because after this, all of a sudden, Black's centre is in a lot of trouble. White attacks the centre. He now forces Black to give up the bishop pair. This diagonal extremely strong. He chips away back at the centre. And the problem here is it might look okay for Black, but the d4 pawn's very weak. The knight now comes around to attack it. And eventually Artemiev wins this pawn and he plays brilliantly to win the rest of the game. So bloody congratulations to both Aronian and Ding. They are both now... not Ding. Oh dear, I got that wrong. Aronian and Artemiev are in the final. What a final that is. I did not expect either of these players to be in the final. It's a complete turnaround. They fought like tigers in the last day. They're going to be playing off for the big prize. And Magnus, Carlsen and Ding are playing in the third and fourth place. That must be an absolute pain in the bottom, isn't it? You can't win it anymore. You're playing for third and fourth. Do you really want to be there? Well, at least these two are massive rivals and great chess players, so we should get some good chess. But we're going to be concentrating on the final for today and tomorrow. The play actually starts very soon. It might have already started by the time I get this video out. Cheers, everyone. Bye for now. Like and subscribe, of course.